Steel, stainless steel, carbon plus iron, or whichever type of steel you heard most, that's steel. You know what steel is? Steel, which has been widely used in almost every industry since by its discovery, is still in use. Steel. Good day to everyone, I'm Tarık Cengiz and today we'll be talking about steel. Specifically, my focus will be on two advantages of using steel in automotive industry. The first of these is ability to customize the steel according to desired conditions. And the second is the material and processing costs. So let's go on. Before moving on to the advantages of using steel, I would like to point out the meaning and importance of a few terms about steel. Wear resistance. Imagine scraping a plate with a spoon in your hand. You are pushing it hard, and the non-abrasion of the plate is associated with wear resistance. The second is hardness. You know, when you put your hand on your pillow in your bed, there is a hollow in your pillow occurring. The structure that prevents from this happening in steel is measured by hardness. And finally, toughness. The fact that steel can remain in one piece under applied force and pressure can be associated with toughness. So let's go on with advantages of steel. The first and most important advantage of using steel in the automotive sector is the properties of the steel can be adjusted according to desired condition. Let me explain what I mean with two examples. In case one, you want to manufacture a racing car. The vehicle you produce will race for 24 hours, maybe non-stop, and the vehicle's engine will run at 7,000 RPM rotation per minute. In such a case, the engine block you will produce must be much more powerful than it normally be. In case 2, consider a snowplow. Snowplows often operate in sub-zero conditions for extended periods of time. For this reason, every steel part you produced must be suitable for working in cold conditions. Now that we understand the concept, we can ask the following question. How does steel do that? Steel is material that mostly consists of iron and carbon and can gain various properties with the use of some elements, manganese, phosphorus, silicon, sulfur elements. We examine this under two headings. The first is the components, the second is production method. When we look at the components, the strength and hardness value of the steel increase considerably as the ratio of the materials added in iron, especially carbon, increases. But the steel become more brittle and less ductile. Less ductile is not the same as saying brittle. You can consider a glass for brittle and plastic ruler for ductile, for example. This means that it's possible to produce according to desired condition, taking into account to changes in components of the steel. On the other hand, the method of production is much more important than it seems, because how it's produced is what determines the limits of density of the components of the steel. I can visualize in this way. The structure of iron consists of particles, and if you heat it, if you make it hotter, the particles, there's a gap between particles, and you can put another particle between these gaps. So this is what it is. The processing temperature of the steel is therefore a great importance for its strength. For this reason, it's possible to produce steel suitable for the condition we want by changing the processing temperature. If you look at the tables, there is how much steel rate used in cars or vehicles, and except aluminum, these are all comes from steel, and as I said, manganese and other elements are added, and these are all comes from these. And second one says strength of these materials. The second major advantage of using steel in the automotive industry is the low cost of material and production. Considering that even 1% price difference in mass production makes a difference of millions of dollars in general, material and production cost is critical issue for automotive industry. For example, tungsten has more wear resistance than steel and higher toughness values than aluminum than steel, but there is a big gap when we look at them in terms of costs. If you look at the table, you can see cost difference between materials, and there's lots of difference between steel and the another ones. In conclusion, we talked about two advantages of using steel in the automotive industry. Today, the automotive industry, which draws attention to even more, has used and will be used, always used, because 100% recyclable, and it's also very cheap, and you can change the properties of the steel. These are my references, and thank you for listening to me.